Hello and welcome everyone. This is Melissa from Endo Empowered, and today we're talking all about adhesions. Now, before we get started, as usual, I'm going to be talking about my tea choice because this is the Tea with Mel series. And today I've actually got something, it's not quite tea, but you can get it as a tea, and that is dandelion root. Now, this is a combo. So this is actually dandelion and chicory together. And it creates this kind of very coffee-like, I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, coffee-like color and kind of that same sort of bitterness that you get from coffee. So if anyone is missing their coffee, then the dandelion root is going to be your new best friend. I am going to be adding some almond milk because we want to be avoiding dairy. Dairy is a very inflammatory thing to be adding into your diet, and inflammatory stuff makes endo worse. So right, let me tell you a little bit about dandelion root. Dandelion's main key things is that it focuses on liver health. Now, if you have hormone issues, if you have high toxicity, if you have dysregulation in terms of your histamine response, which ultimately relates back to inflammation of the body, then it's very likely that your liver needs support. Now, I know for many of us, we've been taking hormone treatments, contraceptive pill, been on all sorts of weird and wonderful painkillers. Those all affect the liver. And ironically, the liver is actually what we want to support with a condition like endometriosis. So dandelion root is your new best friend. If you're just joining us, welcome, welcome. Feel free to share where you're at. I have jumped onto this other plan now because this one works easier for me. So feel free to chat, share a chat, share in the chats. Let me know where you're at and what you would specifically like to know about adhesions if I haven't covered it. If you want to share your story, feel free to do that as well. Really want to support you and help you with your endometriosis and making life a little bit easier and better without having to worry about endometriosis. So in case you missed it, today's tea is dandelion root. And what we're going to tell you about dandelion root. Okay. So it is bitter. If you like the bitter taste of coffee, then dandelion root is a great replacement. So it helps with fluid retention, cystitis, constipation. I know there is a member who struggles with constipation, so dandelion root might just be the perfect answer for you. And basically, it is very much focused on healing the liver. So if there are liver things going on, which very likely will be a factor if you have endometriosis. So let me just find the bit about the liver. So it says that it can inhibit liver cancer cells, causing apoptosis through increased levels of cytokines. Okay. It has anti-tumor effects and anti-carcinogenic. And of course, it also does a whole lot of other things. So sorts out any indigestion, dyspepsia, constipation, any kind of jaundice, then anything to do with the kidneys and the urinary tract. So your liver will fix your fluid retention and cystitis. So if you have those kinds of things, and I really recommend dandelion. It always reminds me of the Ice Age movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that movie where the rhino finds the dandelion and he's like, dandelion. So it's one of my favorite scenes of that movie. So dandelion is actually a weed, and for many people, they will try and destroy dandelion, but actually dandelion is really, really good, and we want to be having even the leaves you can have in a salad, super healing for the body. Right, so shall we get started with talking about adhesions today? So feel free to ask me any questions at any point. If there's something not clear, please feel free to just leave a comment and I will be happy to help you. Okay, so adhesions are essentially your body's way of creating internal cells, sort of healing. So if you think about adhesions, I want you to think of like when you have a scar, it's your body is trying to pull skin together. And what's happening with adhesions is your body actually thinks it needs to heal that space and it needs to protect that space. One of the most interesting sort of not studies, but I came across this guy who talked a lot about he works specifically with women in treating adhesions with sort of very deep massage treatment, which is one of the things that I recommend you guys do, which we'll talk about later. But he talks about a correlation that he found with women who had had a fall of some description. So falling off a horse, doing ballet, gymnastics, any kind of fall, specifically where you're landing on the coccyx, which is right at the end of the, sort of that bone right in by your bum. If you've ever landed on it, you would know. It's very, very painful. And I did this. I was playing by the pool and I remember landing on that, and it's incredibly painful. Now, your body will do everything in its power to protect the uterus because that is about giving life and, all the things related to reproduction. So the body will try its best to protect that. And so what it does to hold that uterus in place, it actually sends out the adhesions around that space. So if you think about it like spider webs, so it sort of goes to try and hold that uterus into place so that it doesn't have that extreme bouncing or falling experience. And so those adhesions are often a trigger because of that event, so your body is aiming to just heal that uterus and protect that uterus. So often when I ask women about their history and, experiences in life, there will generally be some kind of fall in that history, which correlates back to what this guy taught me about adhesions. So be interested to know in the comments if that makes sense to you, if you've personally experienced that, or if you can relate to that in any way, like if that kind of makes sense. Adhesions are still something your body creates, and that is something I really want to emphasize, because I think we have this idea that it's some kind of permanent structure. It's not a permanent structure. Your body made it in some way to protect itself from something, and we can unmake that. We can get rid of them. So it's just a case of sending a different message to the body and healing that space, and then the body can get rid of those adhesions. Other factors, of course, are that as part of having endometriosis, the body does develop adhesions. And also, every time you have surgery, your body develops adhesions as a way to heal. So for me, I had 7 surgeries, and so I had a lot of adhesions around the belly button because that's where they go in, so they make a little incision and that's where they go in. So my body developed a lot of adhesions around that belly button. And so that whole area was really rock solid, really, really hard from all those adhesions. So, so that is a big, big factor with with adhesions is surgery, unfortunately, makes adhesions worse. And it's always this counterbalance between adhesions, restricting organ movement and organs' ability to do what they need to do, and whether you need to get surgery for that, because ultimately the surgery leads to more adhesions. And there are plenty of studies that show this. There's plenty of literature about this, and this is the biggest issue with surgery, is that adhesions develop again after the surgery. And so this is why women tend to go for these repeat surgeries, as I did, every year and a half, because you're cutting into the body. And when you're cutting into the body, you are maybe knocked out because you don't feel anything, but the body still feels it, the cells still feel it. And so those cells go into an inflammatory response because it's trying to heal that area. And it's that inflammation which ultimately is the driver of endometriosis itself. So it's kind of this weird irony. And so that's why I don't like using surgery as a treatment. To me, it's not a treatment. It's a worst case scenario of, yes, there's adhesions that are limiting organs and maybe there's severe pain, in which case, having those adhesions essentially cut, surgically is really helpful in that situation. So for instance, if you have an ovary attached to the bowel, that can affect that ovary and also affect the bowel from being able to do what it needs to do, which is the peristalsis, where it moves the poo through, So if that is inhibited, then that can affect how well you get rid of waste, and, so that can have an effect there. But very, very seldom do I recommend surgery to treat this, because I have seen women who have managed to get rid of those adhesions without surgery. And ultimately, when we consider the repetition of this process of surgery equals adhesions, it doesn't sort of add up in most cases. But we've done a whole YouTube on surgery. So if you guys missed that one, go and watch that. I'll put the link in here later. But basically, that is a whole other consideration if you are considering surgery or not. So yeah, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. Okay, so now we have a general understanding of what adhesions are. And I guess the biggest thing that I want you guys to sort of think about is adhesions are part of a bigger picture. Adhesions are part of the picture of inflammation. Inflammation is what we should be treating with endometriosis. It is not hormone imbalance. It is not too much estrogen. None of those things are actually the true triggers. What we're treating is inflammation. So when we treat inflammation, we lower that response of the body. So how do I explain this? The best way to explain this is that your immune system is in hyperdrive. It's like super, super hyped up. And so it's triggering this heightened inflammatory response. And it's that which then triggers more endometriosis growth, more pain, and more adhesions. So if we can lower that response, we lower all those things. So we lower inflammation, we lower the pain, we lower the adhesions. So we're not specifically, I'll give you some tactics and things that we can do to specifically address adhesions. But from a broad holistic perspective, we need to be treating inflammation, not hormones. We need to treat inflammation and lower inflammation in the body, and the adhesions will naturally lower with that, because those adhesions are part of that picture of that inflammatory response. It's your body's attempt to heal. The same way you scar when you cut yourself, the same way your finger, if you cut your finger gets all swollen, your finger goes all red, that's an inflammatory response. and then your body goes and creates a scar to heal. It's the same reaction. So we just want to lower that reaction in the body. So does that make sense to you guys? Would love to hear from anyone. Let me know if there's anyone out there, because I feel like I'm talking to the computer. Let's see. There are some comments. Cool. Right. Can you tell if you have adhesions from the type of pain you experience or without a scan or something more? Okay, I'm just going to pop Sabrina's question up here for everybody. You can sometimes tell if there's adhesions through scans depending on where they're located and depending on how large they are, but I think mostly it's because they can tell that organs are not sitting freely. So, if the ovary is like way over there and the bowel's way over there, and they're like, oh, okay, these are kind of not moving, those are indicators of adhesions. Can you tell if you have adhesions from the type of pain? No, the type of pain isn't necessarily indicative of how intense the adhesions are. There are women who have really severe adhesions, and depending on where they're located is depending on how painful or non-painful they are. The best way to think about this is our organs are supposed to that if you imagine like balloons filled with water, and your organs are representing those balloons, and if you were to roll those balloons onto each other, they would kind of glide off each other. That's what your organs are mostly supposed to do. They're not sort of structured, like they're not sort of, even though the pictures show, well, your uterus sits here, and then there's a fallopian tube, and here's your ovary, and here's another fallopian tube, and there's your other ovary, and here's your bowel. It's not so structured like, they create these pictures. It's not like they don't move from that position. I've had women who had an ovary that wasn't, working, and that fallopian tube on one side, and then the other side, the fallopian tube was blocked. And it actually, the fallopian tube went all the way around to use that ovary instead. So it's not like, it's this permanent sort of, you have to use that fallopian tube with that ovary and all those kind of ideas that we have, that it's a set thing. It's not like that. So the pain actually comes when there is limitation of those organs. So when the ovary is maybe restricted, so let's say your ovary is stuck to the bowel, and that ovary now is doing its thing with its monthly cycle, and it's, expanding and extracting, that will cause pain because now it's restricted. It's got like strings attached to it, so it's like those spider webs are attached to it, and every time it opens and moves, that will be painful because it's not supposed to have that restriction. And the same with the bowel. Like if you finding that going to the toilet is painful, it's very likely that there is some sort of adhesions inhibiting the natural peristalsis of your bowel. So as your bowel gets rid of poo, it basically does this kind of motion and to push out the poo. And if that motion is inhibited in some way because of adhesions, then that will be painful. Many women have adhesions around the pouch of Douglas, which is right at the back, because it's a nice little pocket where those dispersed cells can sit. And that's a particularly challenging area to get to, because you can't really get to that with physical treatments. So that's where working on lowering inflammation is kind of the key thing here. So I hope that answers your question, Sabrina. I don't know if MRIs can pick up adhesions that well. I have had women who've used MRIs as a way to tell, but yeah, it's very difficult to pinpoint the pain as specific to adhesions versus endo. But here's the key thing. when you treat pain holistically, it doesn't really matter what the trigger is, So if the trigger's adhesions, or if the trigger's endo lesions, or if the trigger's poor digestion, or you're eating the wrong things and that's creating an inflammatory response, it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, when we treat holistically, we treat much broader, and we focus on really shifting that overall inflammatory response in the body. And when we do that, well, we kind of tick off a whole lot of stuff at the same time. So it's not, in my opinion, you don't necessarily need to know exactly what is the trigger. Some women like to know, because they know, then they feel like, okay, I know what I'm dealing with. But in the scheme of things, does it matter to know what exactly is going on when the treatment is the same? It doesn't matter, what you're doing. Your treatment is still the same. So yay, I'm glad that is helpful. Okay, let me. Okay, so so that's kind of an explanation of adhesions and what is going on with adhesions. Now, adhesions can be a reason why you might struggle to get pregnant. It can be a reason why your digestion would be affected. It can be a reason why you may struggle to ovulate. It can be a reason for all of those things. But I don't want you to stress about that, because the treatments that we use addresses all those things anyway. So it's not necessary to know, every single little detail and to worry yourself, oh, maybe I have adhesions here, maybe I have adhesions there, and because I know that's very easy to do, and it's not actually helpful. One of the things that I think a lot of women do is they create visuals in their mind about how bad the endometriosis is, how bad adhesions are, and those visuals are not good for you to think like that. It's not beneficial to think about how bad things are and how much worse things are getting and how it's taking over your whole body and all these things. Your mind is very, very powerful, and what you think and what information you relay is ultimately going to display itself in your body. So be very, very careful of the wording you use and the thoughts that you have around this. A much more powerful thing to do with adhesions is actually to imagine them just dissolving away. So implement a strategy, come up with a plan on how you're going to address this, and then work on visualizing that every single thing you're doing is actually dissolving those adhesions and just minimizing them. I've had a client who I worked with, Larissa. She was amazing, and she came to me severe pain, like such intense pain that she would be like, the pain would come in these massive waves, and she literally would have to hold on to a bench and just wait for this pain to pass because it was so intense. And she didn't even know she had endo for years. So she carried on like that for years. And then eventually she got a diagnosis, and she had stage 4 endometriosis. Well, then she did all the treatments that I recommended, followed all the advice, took all the supplements that I recommend, and went back for another surgery for a different reason. But they had a look while they were there, and they discovered that she literally, like, the surgeon said to her, this doesn't look like the same person. Like, I don't even see endometriosis now. It's so minimal compared to what it was when you first came in. So she didn't have endometriosis lesions. She didn't have all those adhesions. She didn't have all of that stuckness in the abdomen anymore, because she lowered that inflammatory response in the body. So there is hope, guys, and I know that surgeons are going to say you need to have surgery for adhesions, because if things are stuck together and, they don't believe that it can be dissolved, it can. Your body put it there, your body can unput it there. We just need to understand why the body is putting it there and actually support the body so that it stops doing that. Your body just needs some help. It needs some support. And if you're not giving it that support, it will continue down this path. So that's what I'm saying. You need to develop a strategy for yourself. You need to figure out a plan of what you're going to do. And that needs to involve reducing inflammation in the body. The first step is changing what you eat. You eat 3 to 5 times a day. Everything you eat has an influence on how you feel. Try it. Just try it. For 30 days, eat well. Support your body. Focus on nutrition. And shift some of those things quite quickly. When we eat foods that are high in inflammation, we're driving up that inflammatory response, which is driving up pain, which is driving up heat. So your first waterfall is always going to be what you eat. And then look at other things. How are you moving your body? Is it driving inflammation or is it lowering inflammation? What are you thinking about? Are you stressed out? Are you anxious? That drives up inflammation. And what toxins are in your body? Are there things that are inhibiting your healing? Have you got things that are out of balance in the gut or in the liver or in other areas of the body because there's been some sort of toxin exposure or your digestion isn't working so well? What's going on there? And those are the steps, so we call that the rich technique, replenish, exercise, burn, cleanse, and help support and making sure that you have that. Okay, so techniques and methods in terms of adhesions. The first thing to think about is there is stuckness, there is stagnation in that space. So you've got the uterus and it's sink up these fingers to transit the uterus. Now, if you don't move your body, like if you're literally sitting all day long, those adhesions just get tighter and tighter and tighter. They get really strong because there's nothing to shake them. Think about a spider web analogy, and let's say we have a spider in our house and he's built himself a web and he just keeps going over that web over and over again. That's going to be very, very strong, like elastic strong. What we want to do is slowly and gradually just move those adhesions gently around. And so we want to do exercises that shift the current status quo of how those adhesions are sitting. Currently, adhesions are sitting like this. You are sitting like this. You are walking like this. Your movements are like this. So those adhesions are not necessarily going to be moving very much. And this is why sometimes you may experience pain when you do suddenly decide, oh, actually, I'm going to start walking, and then there is movement, and then that's pulling on the bowel, and that's pulling on the ovaries, and so then you have pain, and you go, no, exercise sucks, I don't want to do that. You did too much, you need to take it slower, okay? But movement in the most gentle way that you can, in an opposite way to how you normally move, is what we want to focus on. So the best one I can recommend is yoga because you are flexing the body, you're moving the hips in a way that's not typically how we move. You're not moving forward like this, you're twisting the body this way and you're the legs, the hips, and every time you do that, you're just stretching that a little bit. If it's too intense, don't push it. Slow it down, do less, depending on where you're at in your journey. But basically the goal here is to flex those adhesions out, engage them to move, and they become less tight. And you do this very, very gradually over time. Okay. And the second thing you want to do is create movement in that space. So once again, think about it like stagnation, it's not much movement, stuck like this. We want to gently, gently move those adhesions, gently, gently massage those adhesions. And my recommendation for that, if anyone can guess, is the Mayan massage. I have a YouTube video on that one. So if you haven't seen that one yet, go and check it out. I'll pop it in the chat for you so you can find my videos. A Mayan massage is a technique that I highly recommend. Very, very easy, not a lot of time. Do it in the shower. It's literally 3 strokes this way, 3 strokes that way, 3 strokes down, and it just creates circulation in the area. Part of the reason why adhesions develop is because there's a waste buildup. There's not enough nutrients to space. We want circulation. And any kind of massage, it doesn't even have to be that one. It can be any kind of massage that you do consistently in the abdominal area is going to support your healing. I recommend combining that with geranium and rose oil. Those two together, rose oil can be expensive, so if you can't afford rose oil, that's okay. Just geranium oil is fine as well. In a carrier oil, so almond oil, something that you like, and you put that on the abdomen and you gently, gently massage. Do not go digging around in there, okay? You are not qualified to go digging around in there. If there is pain in an area, then go and see somebody who's a specialist in visceral massage. Okay, I'll put that in the chat. Visceral massage. Visceral massage is the method that you need to be getting done if you have a really stuck abdomen. And you will know if you have a really stuck abdomen because if you do any kind of movements that are out of the ordinary and you feel a pulling sensation, that's adhesions. Okay? There's a particular one, like if you do, I don't know if you know yoga, but if you do a downward dog and you lift your leg and you swing it around the back of you and that pulls all through that abdominal area, those are adhesions. Okay? Now, there's also something which is called the Wern technique. So that's a couple that have come up with this method. I had an interview with them that you can use as well. It is very expensive, just be mindful. But they have very, very good reviews on the effects of how they can dramatically reduce those adhesions. I will try and find all the links to this and I'll pop it in here later for you guys. They are all on my YouTube channel, so you can always search for them in there as well. But the Wern technique is only available in certain countries as well. So I know there's one in the UK, and I know there's one in, I think it's Massachusetts. I think there's a few in the US, but it is quite pricey. But I've had someone do it and they have said that it's been highly beneficial for them. So either do that or find someone who specializes in visceral massage, pelvic floor massage, any kind of massage that they specialize in so they know where all the organs sit and they know what they're doing. They're not going to push too far. They're not going to hurt you. Mind you, I will tell you, it is painful. I've had this treatment because I had the 7 surgeries and it is very painful. The body needs to release those adhesions and that hold, and that takes an initial bit of pain to get through. But once it's gone, then just everything is freed up again and everything moves better. So, yeah, so those are some of the techniques. The other one that I highly recommend is serapeptase. So serapeptase is an enzyme that silkworms use to get out of their cocoon. So it dissolves those the cocoon, and it's been shown to essentially dissolve the same idea. So it dissolves those adhesions. A lot of women that I've worked with have used serapeptase and found it really beneficial. The tricky thing with serapeptase is you have to take it on an empty stomach. Do not take it with food. It needs to be like an hour away, so an hour before you eat and 2 hours after you eat. Like there needs to be a huge gap and it needs to be on an empty stomach. If you take it with food or anywhere close to food, it will feel really uncomfortable, and yeah, it can be painful because there's some gas buildup. Um, so hope I've answered some of those questions for you guys. Feel free to pop your situation or your question in the chat because I want to make sure that I'm really answering this in the simplest, easiest way so it is helpful. If there is something that doesn't make sense or anything like that, please feel free to use the chat for yourself. Um, the key thing I guess that I want to share about adhesions is that they are treatable. It's not necessary to get surgery for them. I've had many women who just hate surgery, didn't want to go to surgery, and so they found ways. And then they shared those ways, which is pretty much what I've shared with you today. There are other methods that you can use. We are looking at developing a program on this, but not for a while. So, but if it's something that you guys really want, then we can try and push that through. It is really something that I struggle with, I guess, is that I really want to be able to connect with the person and where they're at. And it's very difficult to do that online. I usually see you. So having that ability to read how intense something is, how effective something is quite challenging, particularly with adhesions, where it's a very physical experience. So yeah, but let me know where you're at, what you've tried as well. If there's anything that you have tried in the past that has worked for you, feel free to share that as well. Um, okay, so so adhesions are definitely something that will elevate as you have more of an inflammatory response, as you have more surgeries. So if you are kind of on the fence about that, that is something to consider, is that every surgery will trigger more adhesions. So, and with adhesions, you have an array of other symptoms and consequences of that. So there's something to really think about. Okay. Yeah, so any other questions? Anything you guys want to ask me about adhesions? Okay. The other thing is the heat and cold discussion. So I know so many of you are going to hate me for this one, but heat and applying heat to the abdomen is not a good idea. I repeat, it is not a good idea. Heat initially will dissolve things, will dissolve all of that response, and you will feel better for that moment. But then everything solidifies, and it solidifies harder and harder with every time that you do the hot, cold. When you think about what inflammation is, there is heat, there is redness, there is swelling. Why would we want to add more heat to that space? Um, This guy that I saw, the visceral massage expert that I met with, who treated me, he basically said, "You've been using heat pads. I can tell. Everything is solid right around that abdominal space." And I said, "Yes, for years and years and years." And he said, "Yes, he has seen the pattern. Wherever that heat pad is, there are stronger adhesions because you dissolve and solidify every single time." So I know it feels good in the moment, but unfortunately, that is actually making the situation worse long term. Okay? What we want to do, you can use warm, hot, not a hot water bottle, a warm bottle. Can you say that? Doesn't quite work. But you can use warmth if you need it. So if you're in a cold climate at the moment, which most of you are at the moment, putting something warm there can be really nice. Even just a warm blanket is all you need. So if you're doing a castor oil pack, which actually I forgot to mention that, I will share what you can knows what that is. But when you do a Castor Oil pack, do not apply heat. Do not apply heat when you have period pain. Do not apply heat when you have pain. You want to apply anything, either something warm, preferably something cold, because heat relates to inflammation. Inflammation is what drives up adhesions, pain, bloating. All those symptoms that you experience is all inflammation. So we can lower inflammation with cold. Like when you sprain an ankle and your ankle gets all swollen, you wouldn't put heat on there. You would put cold on there. It's the same idea. Okay? I hope that makes sense. I did an interview about hot water bottles as well, also on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen that one, go watch that one. Okay, so let's talk about Castor Oil Packs. Castor Oil Packs is another way to minimize adhesions. Now, when I do Castor Oil Packs, I like to layer. So I like to make it maximize this time, because castor oil is typically very messy and there's a bit of a process to having a castor oil pack. Castor oil is a very, very healing oil. It's particularly good if you have cysts, if you want to get rid of endometriosis. You can apply it to the liver if your liver is struggling. It's very, very healing, and it seeps deep into the body. So it's got this incredible ability to seep deep into the body. But castor oil is very sticky, and so it's not very pleasant to work with. um, but I found some workarounds. The first one is put your castor oil in a roll-on. So I just got my roll-on, took the little ball thing off, cleaned it, put the castor oil in, put the ball back on, and then you can just roll it onto your belly, and it doesn't require actually touching the castor. You don't get as much castor oil like you do in the traditional method when you soak a really absorbable cloth. That's the traditional method of using castor oil packs, but it is a lot less messy, which means that you'll probably do it more, which means you'll actually get the benefits. So you want to just put the castor oil on. Now, here's my layered effect. I will apply the castor oil and the geranium and the rose oil, because then you're getting those healing benefits of those oils seeping deep into the body. Now, depending on what you're treating is what other layers you might put on there. So if you have cysts, we have other recommendations. If you have ear pain, there are other recommendations. There are lots of things that you can layer up to really help soothe those different symptoms and situations. And the castor oil is like your carrier, and just get it there. You know, it's great. So castor oil is fantastic for just dissolving those adhesions. And coming back to my point in the beginning, we want to visualize that dissolving of adhesions. We want to visualize melting. Any visual that works for you, water dissolving. You know, anything like that where you're imagining it's just dissipating. And castor oil has this beautiful effect that does do that. While you're sitting there, you know, just visualize positive things, do positive things, be mindful with your body, be present with your body, and really take that time rather than just, oh, I've got to do this castor oil. You know, I really want you to enjoy the process and honor your body and really your body. So, castor oil, amazing at dissolving adhesions. So, to give you guys a summary of the key things you want to do, you want to create circulation in the area. So, you want to have a massage of some description, either a mind massage, which you can do yourself, video on YouTube. Or you can get a visceral massage. Visceral massage, go and see someone, an expert who can actually guide you through that process. The second thing you want to do is serotase, which is the enzyme that can help dissolve those adhesions. So you really want to do that. The next thing you want to do is castor oil packs with some rose and geranium oil, and that'll help dissolve the adhesions. You want to do exercises that shift the standard positioning. So you want to open up those um, the your space. Yoga is fantastic for that. Actually, hula hooping, dancing, anything where you're moving your body in a different way is really, really good. Um, so those are the key things that you want to focus on. Oh, and number six is lowering inflammation, which is an overarching idea. So overarching, lower inflammation in the body. Now you can do the other five, but you're not going to get as much of a benefit if you're not lowering inflammation, because ultimately that is the root trigger here. That is the root reason why those adhesions are forming. So if you're not addressing that, those other things will help to a point, but they're not going to really get to the crux. The root reason why your body is forming the endometriosis and the adhesions is because there's hyperinflammation. So you need to lower that to ultimately get better in a bigger scale, not just about adhesions, but everything. So, questions and answers time, guys. I've got 10 minutes, so go for your life. Feel free to ask me anything you want. Anyone got any other questions? Anything? Um, if you have got adhesions in weird and wonderful places, which I have had somebody write in and ask me about that. So if you have adhesions, say, in the pouch or something like that, there is no easy way to massage that, but you can do all the steps. And ultimately, coming back to my point, you need to address inflammation. So focus on what you eat, how you think, how you move, what toxins are in your body, getting rid of those as much as you can, and lowering that inflammatory response. So that is your steps. Now, cool. Yeah, question. I will put the question on here. Thank you, Tiffany. How are you? Okay, so you had a flare up this weekend in this work. Within a few days, I had eye inflammation again. Have you ever had eye issues with Endo? So eye inflammation, how? Like I need a bit more information. So is it inside of the eye or is it outside of the eye? So sometimes there's redness around the eye. Is it inside of the eye? Okay, she's written another comment. So you're back on steroid eye drops again to help treat my eye issues. Yeah, so eyes, twofold. Okay. Steroids indicates an inflammatory response. So you want to focus on reducing inflammation. Your okay, it sounds to me like it's inside of the eye. So let's see. Is this happening at certain times of the month? Or it's a cloudiness? Okay. Here's a question that might seem random, but are you on the pill? Because I had endless eye issues when I was on the pill, and I went off the pill and it went away. Like seriously, straight away. So often there is a link there because the pill changes the mucous membranes of your body. So mucous membranes in the gut, mucous membranes in the eyes, in the nose, and so a lot of the symptoms of experience is often related to that. So I'd be interested to know if you have been on the pill or if you are on the pill, because that may be actually the root cause of what's going on there. It's very hard for me to give you a proper, um, okay, this has happened for a year or more. Okay, it's interesting. I would probably need to consult with you, Tiffany. It's really hard for me to give you a proper diagnosis like this. But my first instinct would be to look at what are you scared to look at? there is a huge mind-body thing here. What are you scared to look at? What is something that you're scared to confront? Maybe there's something in your life that you don't want to look at, or you're scared to look into the future. I don't know. I don't know if that resonates in any way, but that can often be attributed to many things that we experience. Um, but yeah, I've not had anyone specifically ask me about eye issues with endo, so I could certainly do a consult with you and we could, nut this out together in terms of what's going on. But yeah, it definitely is an inflammatory response. So you could try tackling this from a different perspective and just saying, okay, how do I address inflammation overall in the body? And thereby you're going to reduce your endo flares and your eye issues all at once and not have to worry about what the triggers are or where it's come from and just treat inflammation as a whole. So she's saying, my eye doctor doesn't seem to think the two are related, but I had the flare up after I had the flare up last night. Yeah, so I mean, it's an inflammatory response. So due to the hormone fluctuations that come with your period, your inflammatory markers go up during that time, which then means they're up. And that means they'll do their thing. Any other areas of the body that are signs of weakness in the past or have had issues in the past, when inflammation goes up, they will all flare up. So it's definitely related. The whole body is always related because that's what holistic healing is. It's all related. So look at what's driving inflammation in your body. Look at your diet, look at your thinking, look at your life, and look at what's driving inflammation, and then lower inflammation. And then, like I said, you're going to address the endo and the eye issues all in one bang sweep. You won't have to worry about any of it anymore, which is fantastic. So, yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah, it is related. The flare-ups is an interesting term as well because what's actually happening is it's an inflammatory flare. It's an inflammatory response, and often histamine is a factor there. So, if you have anything that triggers high histamine, you will have more of an inflammatory response. And so, we really want to be mindful of things that do that and regulating that. Estrogen or elevated estrogen is actually a trigger for that. So that's why that loop is really important. High histamine is not, so high estrogen triggers the mast cells to release more histamine, and then histamine triggers more estrogen. So it's this random loop, and we need to break that cycle. And oftentimes people focus just on hormones, but ultimately focus on inflammation. A lot easier anyway to focus on that because hormones fluctuate so much. You change your sleep, you change your stress levels, you change one little thing, and they can alter very, very easily. So I don't focus on hormones at all. Okay. Any other questions? Any other things that you guys want to know? Tiffany, I'm happy to jump on a consult with you if you wanted to dive in more specifically on what's happening there. I probably need to get a little bit more history, a little bit more insight to really help you with that. There are urgent use for eye treatment as well. So yeah. Okay. Sabrina, is dairy inflammatory for the body? Yes, it is. The dairy has two proteins in it that most of us actually don't digest very well. When you think about animals, they have milk for a period of time until they're weaned, and then they don't have milk anymore. So humans are very odd in that we have milk right throughout our life. But what's happening is that there are two particular proteins that irritate the gut. The first is casein, and so this is where some people are okay with some dairy like butter, because the processing that is done to make butter minimizes that protein in there. So there's very little, and that's why there's not that reaction towards butter that there would be, say, with and the other one is lactose. So, for instance, I cannot do any dairy, like I can't do milk, I can't do yogurt, I can't do cream, ice cream sometimes, but certainly butter is fine. So it comes down to that enzyme and not having that enzyme. So it's not, how do I say, it's not like we just stop making that enzyme. And so then you're taking something into the body which it doesn't know how to break down, and so then you have a reaction towards that, and that creates a cascade. Some people have found that A2 milk is better than A1 milk, which basically comes down to the cows and what sort of milk they produce. So that may help you, but honestly, you don't need milk in your diet, your diet, in your diet. So if you are kind of like, oh, I'm gonna miss milk, but it's very easy to replace milk now. There's so many options. So yeah, I hope that helps. Sabrina, let me know if you want help with that. Yeah, because sometimes we think it's hard, but it's not really. There's lots of options now. Certainly not. When I started on my journey, there was no options for replacement of milk. I had to make everything myself. So yeah, cool. Oh, your cheese addiction. Yeah. So cheese addiction. Interesting how you say addiction, because what's happening with that addiction, there is a release that's happening, and that indicates that actually cheese is not your brain. So normally when we crave something really, really badly, there is actually an imbalance. So yeah, I would really just try for a month, no cheese, and see if that influences how you feel when you have pain, when you have inflammation, and see if cutting out the cheese will make a difference to how you feel. Um, Yeah, I've had that one many, many times where people are extremely addicted to cheese, and then we eliminate the cheese and then the taste will go away. Because when you're having the cheese, there's an immune response. And for that moment, there's actually, they describe it almost like an oxytocin response in the brain from that immune response. And so for that moment you feel good, but of course it's because the immune system is responding negatively to the cheese. So yeah, give it a go. I know you don't want to hear that, but if it's contributing to your endo pain and making inflammation worse and creating more adhesions, you've got to ask yourself what's more important. Is it more important to have cheese, or is it more important to have no more pain and adhesions and struggles with endo? So that's the choice, and I think that's the thing. Every food we eat, every decision we make, we are confronted with that as we're about to put it in our mouth, and that's how I want you guys to think about this. Is this supporting my healing? Is it adding to inflammation, or is it taking away? And at the end of the day, if you want to feel better, that's the decision you need to make every single time. Yeah, so Sabrina says, I've started to reduce, has been free from it for over a week and still going, but wanted to ask. Cool, well done. That's so good. Very good. Yeah, it is a tough one, and my addiction was chocolate. So, you can go back in the blogs and read about my chocolate addictions. Love chocolate. And anyone puts chocolate near me, I will eat it. And even if I don't feel good from it, I'll just keep eating it. And, so now it's to a point where I just completely eliminate chocolate. I can't even have a little bit. It's almost like once I have a little bit, I'm just like, and maybe it's probably the dairy in the chocolate that's causing that as well. But, just totally addicted to chocolate, and so I had to say no to all chocolate, and then I forget. I actually forget what it tastes like, and that's the same thing that will happen with cheese. If you just give it enough time, eventually you'll just forget what it tastes like, and you'll be able to find other things that are more nourishing and healing for your body. So, yeah, alrighty. Well, that's pretty much everything. I have a very exciting thing that I wanted to share with you guys, and is that we are going to be doing a brand new introductory series that is coming out. And let's see if I can find. There we go. So it's called the Epic Adventure series. And the whole idea of it is that you learn about endometriosis. We dig in a little bit in terms of what is inflammation, what is the immune system got to do with it, how do hormones relate. And I sum up all of this in a very interactive course. So you're literally clicking on things on the screen to make things happen. It's really, really fun, and it's a nice way to learn. And yeah, we've been just putting the finishing touches on it now. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. If you would like to be part of that, if you want to, get access to that, either leave me a comment or write to us at support@endoempower.com, or just subscribe to the channel, and I will do a post out to everyone on the channel as well. So whichever method is easiest for you, but it's going to be completely free, and it has a shit ton, excuse my swearing, but it has a shit ton of awesome info about endometriosis and how it really, can support you in understanding this condition, because there's just so much misinformation about endometriosis, how to treat it, what's actually going on, and I just wanted to put it all into a really compact mini course for you guys so you can get that and understand that a lot more. So yeah, let me know if you like that, and if there's anything else that you guys want me to cover on these live series, feel free to write to us at support@endoempower.com, and we'll be able to create a live for you specifically. And if there's anything that you didn't get about today, anything that you want more clarification on, feel free to write to us about that as well. All right. Thank you guys for being here with me and for sharing your questions. If there's any other way I can support you, do let me know. See you next week. Bye.